All right, now let's get to the very latest in Ukraine. Delegations from Ukraine and Russia met in Turkey yesterday for the second time in a month to discuss peace negotiations, but left without a major breakthrough. Their meeting lasted barely an hour. Citing Russian media, Reuters reports that Moscow put forward terms that would see Ukraine surrender large chunks of its territory and accept restrictions on the size of its army in the future. Kyiv has repeatedly said those terms are unacceptable. Ukraine's defense minister, who led his country's delegation, said he believes only a meeting between Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and Russian President Vladimir Putin can effectively settle the major areas of dispute. Russia and Ukraine did agree to another prisoner swap, however, which will focus on the youngest and most severely injured soldiers. Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky recently hosted Republican Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina and Democratic Senator Richard Blumenthal of Connecticut for talks in Kyiv. The meeting happened just days before Ukraine launched that series of drone attacks targeting Russian warplanes. And Senator Blumenthal joins us now. He's a member of the Homeland Security, Armed Services, and Judiciary Committees. Also with us, the host of Way Too Early, Ali Vitale. Good to have you. So, Senator, tell us what your takeaway was from your trip, especially given the fact that it was just before this massive drone attack, and the status of the talks between Russia and Ukraine.
Thanks for having me, Mika. Always uplifting and inspiring to spend time with Volodymyr Zelensky, my seventh trip to Ukraine, most of them with Senator Graham. But I've met with him on numerous other occasions. And sadly, one of my main takeaways was that peace, even a ceasefire, are nowhere in sight. Obviously, Putin is launching, even as we speak, a major offensive, mobilizing forces in the east, Donetsk and Luhansk and other territories. But the Istanbul proposal that he made yesterday shows how unserious he is about peace talks. He's mocking Trump, playing him. And my visit to Ukraine confirmed for me that that country is in it for the long run. They're planning for the future. They've pioneered and championed the revolution of ground warfare through the use of drones. They're ahead of the United States, which produced 100,000 last year. Ukraine will produce 4.5 million of these small drones. I visited the plants where they do make them. But I also had a chance to see the sites in Ukraine that have been bombed. Putin has escalated his attack on civilians to an order of magnitude that is just brutal beyond words. Whole neighborhoods destroyed. And so he's going to retaliate probably again in response to this attack on his airfields. But the combination of the attacks in the east, the offensive there, and the attacks on civilian populations are in no way deterring the people of Ukraine or Zelensky. They are absolutely determined. Right. And Trump may have told them they have no cards, but they beg to differ. They have cards, and they're long-term cards. 18 months is what it took to plan this attack on the airfields, and they have other measures in the works.
Senator, good morning. I'm curious if President Zelensky told you any more about that breathtaking attack where they smuggled all those drones in onto trucks. The tops of the trucks came off, and they went and attacked those bombers. If you can shed any more light on that, and more broadly, how unserious President Zelensky must think Russia is about peace, given what was offered in Istanbul, which is give us a bunch more of your country and also limit the size of your army, Ukraine, going forward. How is he viewing these negotiations with Russia?
Even before yesterday, there was intelligence about what Putin was going to offer, which is, in essence, more of the same. Disarm Ukraine, new elections to displace Zelensky, secession of territory, no security guarantee. It's what Putin has called eliminating the root causes of the conflict. And it's just totally mocking the people who think peace is possible with Putin at this point. But he indicated nothing, and I mean not a hint of what was to come. And that is one of, I think, the very noteworthy aspects of that attack, that nobody knew about it, despite the very substantial amount of planning and preparation that had to go into it. Zelensky sat in the Oval Office with Donald Trump as the president demeaned him and insulted him by saying he had no cards and kept secret these plans. I think it will go down with the United States Osama bin Laden raid and the Israeli pager operation, one of the great special operation maneuvers of all history. And the more we learn about it, the more incredible it seems. But he kept it under wraps from everyone, including many in the Ukrainian government itself.
Senator, you got a chance to see what's happening firsthand there on the ground. Now, of course, you're coming back to Washington, and there are some actions that you're involved in that the Senate might take up, specifically that bipartisan sanctions package there that would make it very costly to do oil and gas business with the Russians. We heard from Leader Thune yesterday that he could see that move this month. What's your expectation of how that will fare in the Senate, where it has wide bipartisan support, but then in the House as well?
Good question, Ali. It's crunch time in Ukraine, but it's also a pivotal moment here in Washington. And our sanctions bill would make a tremendous difference in stopping the flow of revenue to Putin's war machine. 500% tariffs on any country buying energy products, oil and gas from Russia, would target India and China. They buy 70% of it. And the message to China would be, we are choking off the revenue flow. We're putting Putin's economy on a trade island. And if you continue to support that war machine, you will do no business with the United States or Europe. And the reaction and support in Europe is absolutely astonishing. We spoke to President Macron when we were in Paris, and he is 100% on board. Germany is as well, which is significant because you'll remember that Europe used to buy a lot of oil and gas from Russia. It has weaned itself away from it, and that support is critical. And of course, President Zelensky believes that these sanctions are a critical source of support, along with more air defense, which he needs desperately to fend off the rain of terror from the skies that Putin is imposing on his people. And I also want to say, Ali, that while I was there, I visited for the first time with some of the kidnapped children. And I will tell you, my heart was in my throat. There are tears in my eyes now as I think about those children who were abducted, 20,000 of them. 20,000 of them still in Russia, taken from their families by Russian soldiers who called them orphans because their parents were either shot or imprisoned. They became orphans. And I met with two of them about that experience, and the trauma and the pain are going to be with them, I'm afraid, for their whole lives.
So, Senator, let me ask you, Joe Scarborough here, let me ask you, are Republicans going to stand up and defend those children? Are Republicans going to stand up for the people of Ukraine who continue to get indiscriminately killed by Russian missiles? Are Republicans that you're with, when the time comes, will they stand up to Vladimir Putin, do what's right, and pass the sanctions bill that you and Lindsey Graham have put together? Will they push it to the floor and get a vote on it?
Key question, Joe. I'm very encouraged.
What's your best guess?
My best guess is yes. My best guess is probably 75% yes. And here's the reason. First of all, Speaker Johnson yesterday said he was in favor of sanctions. Very good sign, because he wouldn't say it if the White House were telling him that it would oppose it, which I think is the critical fact. The White House can stay neutral, it can stay hands-off, and Republicans will stand up to Putin. Also, remember, in the United States Senate, we have 82 co-sponsors, and we will be adding more Lindsey Graham and I have worked tremendously hard to build this coalition, 41 Democrats, 41 Republicans. And Donald Trump himself has mentioned sanctions as a potential remedy. The mystery to me is why Donald Trump is taking these insults, the degradation of Putin, in effect playing him in this very overt and demeaning way. So I am hopeful that Putin's continued resistance to any kind of serious ceasefire proposal. Zelensky's done everything, literally everything Trump has asked him to do. He's come to the table. He is ready to do a ceasefire. And of course, it's in his interest because his people are being murdered by the missiles and drones. But he has come around to do what Trump wants him to do. So I think, yes, Republicans will stand up as long as they're given a chance to vote. All we need is a vote. We have 82 co-sponsors in the Senate, which is a super veto-proof majority. And I believe they'll stand up.
Well, and if Mike Johnson is saying in the House that he supports the sanctions, and that is Donald Trump basically giving him the go-ahead because he would never do it unless he didn't. And that's, of course, most likely his response to Vladimir Putin.
Democratic Senator Richard Blumenthal of Connecticut, always good to see you. Thank you very much for coming on the show this morning.